What's going on, YouTube? This is Boxingwave, and we're back with the Wave Report number 28. We're going to discuss this past weekend's fights. There was a few cards on, so we're going to discuss the main events and some of the undercard fights as well. All right. I did already do a recap of the Devin Haney Regis Prograis fight, so if you want to see that in full, check out the last video upload that I did yesterday, and you can hear me talk more in depth about that fight. But I will talk a little bit more about that fight at the end of this video here. All right, but let's get started. All right, please make sure, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. All right, like and comment the video as well. Let's start out with Bruce Shu Shu Carrington. All right, he fought Jason Sanchez. This is one of the top prospects in the sport, in my opinion. He definitely has the potential to be a champion at some point. All right, he's been showing some great IQ, just great ability overall, and definitely looking forward to see what he can do against the top contenders at 126. But he fought a veteran, Jason Sanchez, and he stopped him in the second round. I know in the first round, Jason was very, very aggressive towards him. He even landed a couple of shots against Bruce, but Bruce was able to drop him, hurt him later, I think maybe one or two times, and then stopped him very late in the second round. Okay. What I want from Bruce at this point, I mean, as he's moving up, just want to continue for him to continue just showing progression and stepping up in the opposition slowly. And I think that he's at a stage now where he looks like he can compete at the very top already, but we want to see him grow and just continue to improve. So I think that at this point, maybe fighting, maybe not the very top contenders, but fighting some of the guys that fought some of the top contenders or the champions of the past. And I'm thinking guys on a level of like a Ruben Villa, right, or Christopher Diaz or something like that. Maybe like not Isaac Dogbe yet, or you know, I don't want to jump up too fast, but he looks like he has the ability and talent to compete against the very best right now. But we don't want to throw him in there with the Wolves yet because we don't really know. Like I think the other day when I was live, somebody asked me if I thought he can beat Inoue, and I'm like, no, it's just too soon for that. You know, we want to see him. He's looking great, and he's looking better with every fight, and he's getting stoppages, and that's great. But we want to see him improve with every fight before we get there, you know? And being that he's still a prospect, in my opinion, I think he should start challenging some of the fighters that's been in there with, you know, some of the past, you know, champions of the division. Excuse me. Like Ruben Villa or Christopher Diaz. You know, I think those fights will be good fights for him right now, you know, just to get to the next level and get that extra experience, all right? But good stoppage, looks sharp, offensively gifted, defensively gifted, great reflexes, speed, all of that. He looks like he has it all, you know what I mean? And I'm definitely rooting for him as a future champion, you know, hopefully at that, you know, hopefully I would love down the line to see him fight like a Raymond Ford, but Raymond Ford is a little bit more ahead as a pro, and you know, Raymond Ford is like, he's like a fight away from getting a title shot, you know what I mean? He's highly ranked already, so I won't say that for now, but Shu Shu is definitely looking like he can compete at the very best already. All right, but I don't want to jump the gun. All right, so let's get to the next. Let's get to the next fighter. Xander Zayas. He fought Fortea. Wasn't familiar with the guy. You know, Xander did what he normally does. Got a stoppage. Dominated performance. You know, he's been getting great fights, getting great preparation over the last few years. We've been seeing him on top ranked cards over and over again. He's been active, and he looks great. You know, he looks good. I think, unlike Shu Shu, I think Xander is at the point now where he should be fighting another top contender. Maybe not a championship fight yet, but he should be fighting a top contender right now. You know what I mean? He doesn't have to fight a guy that's been around, and he's going to be that in his next fight, because his next fight, he's going to be fighting former champion Patrick Chisera in his very next fight. And I think that's exactly, and this is what I said on the live the other day, this is exactly where he needs to be. He's been fighting guys on this level of Fortea and in lower levels for a while now. It's time to fight a top contender or maybe a former champion or something. Like if Jason Rosario was still around, fight a guy like that. I mean, he's at 154. So I think it's about time. Maybe not a Lubin or maybe not a champion yet, not been Brian Mendoza. I don't think at that level, but I think he should be facing a Patrick Chisera. I think that is a good fight. Chisera did beat Carlos Adames. He beat him, and I think Chisera is the goods, So I think that is a good fight, a good test for him. And I can't wait to see it. I think at this time, it's not much really to say about Xander outside of just waiting to see him get a shot against a higher level opponent. What I like about Xander is his discipline. He's not flashy. He sticks to the basics. And he gets the job done. You know what I mean? I would like to see him get pressured a little bit to see how he reacts to it. But he seems to be up until this point, he has seemed to be in control of every one of his fights, at least the ones that I've seen him in. And I want to see some pushback now. Maybe Chisera can do that, maybe not. But I would like to see Xander step up at some point in his very next fight. In his very next fight, he's definitely going to step up in opposition. All right. All right. Moving on. Chris, and he was able to stop Fortea in, I think, after 5 rounds or so. I think he caught him. I believe it was a body shot. I can't remember, but he dropped him, and Fortea just didn't get up. He looked like he was going to get back up, but I mean, the guy was a decent boxer. Did have a little bit of speed and some good counters, but again, Xander was just on a different level. All right. Chris Billam-Smith, all right, he beat Masternick, stops him after the 6th. Masternick did not come out of his corner, and it was a pretty good win because Billam, he fought a fighter that's been in there with, some of the other best cruiserweights in the past. And Masternick is a former champion, and it was a good win. Billam-Smith is getting some good experience over the years. Yes, he only has 1 loss to Richard Riakporhe, and hopefully next year at some point we get the rematch between those two. I'm expecting him to fight Lawrence Okoli. I'm expecting to see the Okoli rematch at some point. But it was a good win. I did watch it this morning. I watched it kind of late. But it was a good win. It was tough early on. Masternick was landing some good right hands over his jab. And he did take some punishment in the fight. But I thought Billam was just too big. He was too much of a dog. Just like he was against Lawrence Okoli. And it was just too much for Masternick. And he just didn't come out of his corner going into the 7th round. But yeah, Billam-Smith fighting Riakporhe would be good. I never seen the first fight. I can honestly say I never seen that first fight. I tried to look it up before. I tried to look it up again this morning. I couldn't find it. I would like to see that fight, but I know it was a split decision win for Riakporhe. But I feel that Billam-Smith he's had the better experience since then. He's fought a few top contenders, champions since that loss. So I think he's got the better work since then. But I'm looking forward to see either fight. I like Richard Riakporhe. He's cool. I think he's pretty good. Lawrence Okoli, on the other hand, if they are going to have their rematch, Lawrence would have to be a little bit more aggressive. I don't think the way he has normally won fights, typically won fights in the past, is going to work. Or the tying up and the clinching is not going to work. He has to develop some sort of dog in him, some sort of inside game. because once you close a gap on him, he's not really that good. All right, so I think whether which way it goes, I'm cool with either fight. I'm either cool with Richard Riakporhe fighting Lawrence Okoli too. I mean, that was a fight that we were supposed to get at one point. So all three of those fights, whichever way it goes, I'm cool with. All right, but it was a good win it was actually a pretty good fight. If you haven't checked it out, check out the Billam-Smith against Masterton fight. Pretty good fight. I still think Jai Opetaio is a league above all of the rest of the guys at cruiserweight for now. But Billam-Smith is definitely he's definitely a top dog up there. Not just a champion, but I like the dog in him. And I think that's what really keeps winning these bigger fights, like against Masternick and against Okoli. All right, so pretty good fight. Check it out. Moving on to the next fight, Montana Love against Liam Paro. This was on the undercard of Devin Haney. This was actually the co-main event in the Devin Haney Regis Prograis fight. All right, so look, Liam Paro. Again, we have two southpaws facing each other. And Liam was more of the dog in this fight. I liked the left hands that he landed. I think he was just more aggressive, more higher volume. I think Montana Love was just trying to counter too much. I think he rarely initiated. He rarely came forward. I think he showed us a great jab. I think he landed some good lead right hooks. But overall, he just doesn't have the dog in him. Someone said that he's like Adrian Broner 2.0. Yeah, maybe based on personality, but outside of that, I don't think so. I think one thing about Broner people fail to remember is that Broner is a very durable fighter. Say what you want. I know Maidana and all these guys beat him. The problem with Broner is dedication to the sport overall, but the problem with Broner in the ring is volume. He doesn't let his hands go enough, But Adrian Broner is a dog. He's very durable, and those 3 or 4 rounds where he's coming forward and he's actually being aggressive, he's on another level. I think there are points in a fight where he shows greatness, but most of the fight, he's not throwing enough. His conditioning is just not good enough for him to keep throwing. And I don't see that in Montana Love. I think Montana Love has some good counters. He does have some good hand speed. But overall, he doesn't throw enough, and he just can't. He's always tying up. He can't really exchange like that. I think he is chinny. He is chinny, and he's shown it in the last few fights. And Paro was just more aggressive. I was expecting Paro to win. Me and my pops was here doing a live. I was expecting Paro to win this fight. I just think seeing Montana Love in the last couple fights getting knocked down, especially in a fight against Steven Spark, I just don't think he has a dog. He's not a big junior welterweight, and he just don't know how to initiate, And I think, the couple good wins he got, I don't want to take anything away from him, but I don't see him as a top tier fighter at 140 right now. He does have some good abilities, and I think he has a lot of personality, but outside of that, I think he needs to focus less on being too pretty. I was making jokes during a live about the ink that he had in his hair before the fight started. And then after the first round, he had it all smudged on his forehead. You know what I mean? It's just, I think he listen, he got to be himself. Listen, ain't nothing wrong with being like a pretty boy and all that. Listen, if that's you, that's who you are. That's who you are. But at the end of the day, he lacks the dog in him. He can't really hold his own when the fight gets really physical. And I know he beat Ivan Baradzic, but he beat him at a time where Baradzic was clearly, he was taking losses left and right and getting stopped, and he just didn't have the chin anymore. And Montana Love did what he had to do, and it was a good win. But now you're fighting guys losing a Spark, losing a Paro. These guys that are bigger than you, that's going to walk you down. And the more you lose the same way, the more that the next fighter is going to try to pressure you too. So he's a good boxer, but he just can't take the pressure. Now, I know this was for some kind of like lower WBO title. I did look it up. Liam Paro is, I don't know where he's going to be ranked after this fight, but this is not like a high ranking WBO fight. So there's still so many fighters at with the 140 division. I don't know what this win is going to mean for him, moving forward. Like, I don't know how far away in the line of people there are out there to get a title shot. But it's still a good win. It's definitely still a good win. But I'm not expecting him to fight for a title just based on this win. He will probably need another fight or two before we get there. We'll see. But Paro is definitely a good... I still don't believe he beats the top tier guys. But this is definitely a good win moving forward. I mean, he's still undefeated. He is a southpaw. He does have some pop. He does have some dog in him. But there's so much talent at 140 right now. You got all the guys coming up from 135. You got all the former champions still around. It's just a lot going on at 140. I don't know what this fight means for him. It doesn't prove to me. It's a good win, but it doesn't prove to me that you beat the top tier fighters. And there's so many of them. So I still want to see future fights with Paro. I'm definitely going to have my eye on him moving forward. But Montana Love, I really don't know what he could do, because he seems to be too big to move down to 135, but he seems to be too small at 140. You know what I mean? And it's like, damn, he doesn't have height, he doesn't have reach, and he seems to be pretty limited. And I don't really know where he goes from here. But he's definitely gonna have to make some changes in his game and develop a little bit more, especially that he's shown to not having such a great chin is a problem, and especially in this division, is so much talent, elite talent in this division. You got so many aggressive fighters, you got so many boxer punchers, and then you have so many aggressive volume punchers too. And it's like, what do you do against a Gary Antoine Russell? What do you do against a Matias? And then you got guys like that can box better than you, like a Devin Haney or a Teofimo Lopez. It's like, what do you do? And that's the top tier guys. The guys right underneath that, Prograis and Josh, if he stays around at 140, probably not at this point, but so much talent there, and I think even the guys at 135 right now still beats him too. So I don't know what he's going to do on a bounce back, but I just think I strongly suggest he needs to change camps and develop something other than what he's doing, because what he's doing is not good enough. He's a good boxer, but he's not good enough to compete against the very, very best. All right, so moving forward, Andy Cruz, the two-time Olympic gold medalist, had a second pro fight against Jafani Strafan. I'm not familiar with Strafan. It was the first time seeing him. I know he had lost. He does have power, but, he has taken some losses on the step-up fights. So it was pretty much a journeyman fight. What I saw in Cruz, I've seen more of him in this fight than I did in his pro debut. We know he's been one of the greatest amateurs in this past generation. We already know that. We already know that he's beaten Keyshawn Davis like 4 or 5 times in the amateurs. Even recently, he fought him after Keyshawn became pro. He fought him and still beat him again in the amateur fight. Andy Cruz, 135, is a real threat to me right now. I still think he kind of lacks punching power, but we've seen him be more aggressive in this most recent fight. I don't think he has big power, but I think his power is still developing and is still respectable. And what he did against Strafon, I mean, like I said on a live the other night, he showed so much in that fight. The speed, all right, the defense, the angles, his feet, just being able to get in and out of position so quickly where a guy just can't, no matter what he does, can't land a punch, barely landed a punch in the fight. The combinations were on point. The punch selection, same thing I was saying about Devin Haney. It's just, this guy is a weapon. And I can see why he beat Keyshawn so many times. I see it. And I know people are going to make the argument, yes, the pros are different. Keyshawn is more experienced as a pro. It's different from the amateurs. But I think that this fight here shows that he's developing more as a professional, and being with Jaron Ennis's father in that camp is showing, like, I've seen a little bit of Jaron Ennis in this fight with Andy Cruz. Just the unorthodox approach and doing so many things. I've seen Boots Ennis. I've seen Lomachenko in this fight. I've seen it's like a mix of a bunch of great fighters all in one. And I do think, of course, one punch knockout power, he doesn't have that. With all of the punches that he landed on this guy, it still took the ref to jump in and stop it. Strafon probably could have continued fighting. I think the stoppage was fine. I personally don't have a problem with the stoppage. But again, Andy Cruz just is getting better. And, with this, if we keep going like this, he's going to be a real threat to a lot of these top fighters at the 135 division. I mean, the division is already crowded with a bunch of fighters. I know, but I think in his very next fight, I think this guy could be fighting a top contender in his very next fight. And no one's going to want to fight him, because it'll be his third pro fight. Who wants to lose to a guy with his third pro fight? At this point, what top contender is going to want to do it? So I don't know who it's going to be, but I would like to see him face maybe not a champion, but a top contender. I would love to see the Keyshawn Davis fight. I would love to see the Floyd Schofield fight. If those two don't fight each other next, I would love to see Andy fight one of those two. I would love to see Andy fight anyone. But the ones that are close to a title is going to go for the title, I believe. But there is an issue with the lightweight division, and I feel like a lot of these guys don't really want to fight each other. You have William Zepeda, who was called out by Frank Martin the other day on Twitter, and Oscar already responded to him publicly and said, fight Shakur Stevenson first. William Zepeda had already dug Shakur Stevenson. So it's like, who really wants to fight each other? I think a lot of these fights are going to be in-house fights. I would like to see Andy Cruz maybe fight Jojo Diaz. I mean, I feel like Jojo recently has been the test for all the guys on the come up. But I'm just trying to give you examples of people that I would like to see Andy Cruz fight next. I think he's already ready to fight a contender. It's just that I know it's going to take a lot for anyone to go in there and want to face a guy like that. It looks very good. I was very, very impressed with his performance. I thought the first fight was okay. I wasn't blown away, but I think this performance is showing that I think he's merging into the pros very, very well, and I think he'll do fine, So moving forward, let's talk Robesi Ramirez against Rafael Espinoza. This was a championship fight, and this was a war. And I already seen people saying that this is one of the best fights of the year. I definitely agree that this is one of the better fights of the year. Maybe a top 10 fight of the year. I don't always like to jump out the window unless a fight is this super exceptional because we all tend to, it's December. I have to go back and see what great fights we saw this year, because we saw a lot of good fights this year. So I can't sit here and confirm that this is a fight of the year, but this was one of the better fights of the year because we saw a lot of drama. Both fighters were able to score knockdowns in this fight. Big shots were landing. Fighters were hurt multiple times. It was a good fight, and the styles matched up well. It went the distance. In the earlier 4 rounds, Ramirez was down for 0 rounds to 4. I gave Espinoza the first 4 rounds. Espinoza, I mean, tall, 6'1", fighting at 126, man. The guy is 6'1", all right, fighting at 126. I don't know how guys like him can make that weight. You know, it's just like Sebastian Fundora. I don't know how a guy that's 6'5" can make 154. That's crazy. But this guy, 6'1", can make 126. And in the earlier rounds, Espinoza, who I've never seen before, I told you guys on the live, I've never seen this man fight before. I didn't have time, and I would never do a breakdown without doing my own film study. This guy knows how to control distance, all right? I think he was still getting hit from the outside. I do think that a lot of his punching was based off volume and not really one punch power. I think Ramirez was probably the bigger puncher between the two. But man, this guy knew how to control distance. And not only that, but I think Espinoza fought better on the inside. He fought better. He was able to sit in the pocket and fight well on the inside. But in the earlier rounds, we were seeing lead leg hooks to the body. We were seeing him move and stepping in and out of range. You know, and I think controlling Robeisy with the jab. And you know, like Robeisy likes to do the drop step a lot and counter off the drop step, but he just, you know, in the earlier rounds, it looked like Espinoza knew to step back every single time because he was expecting the counter to come. He still got tagged, but it was, Robeisy was forced to fight a dogfight because he just couldn't win just simply boxing. The guy was too tall, he was too rangy, and the volume was just too high. Then there was a point in the 5th round, which is another round where I thought Espinoza was clearly winning. He called a big right hook and dropped him. I mean, this was a monstrous punch. Knowing the outcome of the fight, man, the timing of that punch cost him the fight. Because that was a Saved by the Bell punch. I mean, it was at the end of the 5th round where Robeisy was clearly losing a round again. I mean, Espinoza, it seemed like Robeisy just couldn't figure him out until he landed that one mega bomb on a punch. I mean, this punch was so hard that this guy just folded, right? And then when he got back up, he fell again against the ropes. Could barely walk to his corner. All right, he was out of it. That punch hurt him so bad that it took him a couple of rounds to fully recover from that punch. So the timing of that punch, if it was early in the round, Robeisy would have knocked him out. I think Robeisy probably would have stopped him. The fight would have been over. Espinoza won. I mean, Espinoza lost the next few rounds, in my opinion. I think you can make an argument that Ramirez won the next 3-4 rounds or so. All right. It was tough to score because there was a period between the 8th and maybe the 10th round where I think it was neck and neck because Espinoza had started to recover more with each round. And even though his volume was insane, I mean, this guy was throwing over 100 punches a round. It seemed like whenever Robeisy would land a big shot, it was more effective. It's just that Robeisy was never consistent with every round. He would fight for certain periods of each round, whereas this guy, Espinoza, was just landing and throwing punches throughout the entire round. All right. And Robeisy, you know, I've seen him get slow. Like, he's not a volume puncher by any means. He tries to make every punch count. I've seen him get tired, a little bit tired before against Isaac Dogbe. I've seen him in the second fight, half of the fight, just kind of slow down a little bit. You know what I mean? And I think that's what happened in the last couple of rounds of this fight. So we get into the 12th, and this guy just, Espinoza went crazy. And this is what I mean. I respect the hell out of this guy. When a fight is close, or when you are the challenger, you push it to the very limit. You leave no doubts to the referee, because the judges. The judges had it close. One judge had it a draw. You know? So with that being said, you never know where this fight could have went. And Espinoza pushed it, hurt Robeisy, was able to drop him, and finish the fight with them both scoring knockdowns. I personally think the fight should have been scored 7-5, maybe 8-4 for Espinoza. They both traded knockdowns, so that canceled each other out. But Espinoza, to me, won more rounds. I don't know how you can give that fight a draw. I didn't really have a problem with the other two scorecards, but I think Espinoza won the fight. You know, at this Robeisy, his volume just wasn't enough. And even though he landed some big shots throughout a bigger, longer period of the rounds, throughout the rounds, it just wasn't enough. Each round was just like, yeah, you landed a few big shots, but this guy's tagging you all round long. You know what I mean? And he's beating you. I thought Espinoza did the better work on the inside. Yes, he's tall and long and rangy. But I thought Espinoza, even on the inside, was too much for Robeisy. You know what I mean? So I think overall, Espinoza won the fight. Much credit for him to give us that 12th round that he gave us. And this is why I don't like when fighters like Lomachenko, there's no excuse for you to give Devin Haney the 12th round. You know, I know a lot of people were bringing that up yesterday and the last few days about Loma, being robbed and stuff. You complained about being robbed before 2 times in the past. Why would you give up the 12th round? You are not the champion in this fight. Why give it up? Why would you think you're ahead? Even if you think you're ahead, don't leave it to the judges. Go for it. And that's what I liked about Espinoza. Go for it at the very last round. Give it all you got. You may never get this chance again. And that's what he did. And it won him. It made the fight clear because he scored a knockdown and he went at the champion who he didn't have it in him to compete with Espinoza in that 12th round. Espinoza was crazy. I don't even know how he can throw that many punches. The only problem is defensively, he leaves himself open to get countered. And he's definitely there to get hit. I think in the earlier rounds, I like this, the step in and step outs early on. But it seems like once he got hit with that right hook by Ramirez, it seemed like he was an easy target from the rest of the fight. But his volume was too much for Ramirez, and that's what won him the fight. So he is now a champion. I was looking forward to seeing Ramirez fight Luis Alberto Lopez in a unification. But, if Ramirez and Espinoza don't have a rematch, because it was still a good competitive fight, if they don't rematch each other, I would love to see some kind of unification. And that would be a good fight, too, because Alberto Lopez he's so awkward. It's like Emmanuel Navarrete, where they throw these looping shots from low places and it's hard to really time it, and I think that would be a good fight because Lopez would be good at countering Espinoza. But Espinoza's volume and his size and his reach would be a problem for Lopez as well. Espinoza is definitely on my radar, moving forward. I mean, the guy's 6'1", fighting at 126. Yes, he got dropped. Yes, he got hurt a few times in this fight. But he's a problem because of his volume. I mean, this guy can easily throw over 1,000 punches a fight. And I think all around he's a good balanced fighter. All right. All right, so moving forward, Devin Haney reaches Prograis. Again, I had did a full recap of this fight already. Um, just a few things. I was reading some of the comments of the people that reacted to my video and to the fight in general. Haney put on a masterclass performance. And I know people are going to say that Prograis was exposed in his last fight, and he was kind of exposed in his last fight. I figured that even though I didn't pick him to win the fight, I figured that Prograis would improve in camp leading up to this fight. It didn't seem like I saw any difference. I think Prograis, and what Haney said prior to the fight, you're 34 years old. You're stuck in your ways. What are you going to learn in one camp? And he was right, because Prograis was the same Prograis that we've seen in every fight prior to this one. And if we're really honest, excuse me, we never seen Prograis fight someone that knew how to use their range like the way Zorrilla did. And then Haney did it even better. I read something on Michael's what's this guy's name on Twitter? Michael Benson. Michael Benson posted a tweet saying that the Prograis and Haney broke some CompuBox record for a 12-round championship fight where it was the least amount of punches landed. Prograis only landed 36 punches total in the fight, in the 12-round fight, breaking the record of De Los Santos, who only landed 40 against Shakur Stevenson. I mean, if we're talking like a masterclass, I mean, that is a true masterclass if you ever seen one. 36 punches in total landed against Devin Haney. And this is why Devin Haney looked absolutely fine after the fight. From what I recall, I'm watching the fight the other night live, I think the ninth round was the only round where Prograis landed his two best shots. I think Prograis landed a good left hand in the ninth round, and I remember him landing a great jab in the ninth round. I don't remember any other effective shots landed at all in the rest of the fight. And then by that point, he didn't even have the same kind of power that he would have had in the earlier previous rounds. And Haney took it well. Haney took all the shots, the few shots that landed against him well. And he looked great after the fight was over. It looked like he sparred. There was no damage on his face. He looked good. Regis Prograis had a bunch of marks over his face. He got knocked down. He got hurt a few times. And, that was it. So Devin Haney gets a lot of credit. A lot of great credit, great work. And he's proven that he's one of the best fighters in the world at this point. One of the best out there. One of the best. Moving forward, this was a WBC championship fight. Sandor Martin is his official mandatory. Sandor Martin is actually the number one ranked guy before this fight was announced. Because because Devin Haney moved up and was already the WBC champion. The WBC honored this fight because of, of Haney's championship status down at lightweight. So now Sandor Martin is the actual Mando. It's not a bad fight. I'm not saying that it's the fight I want to see, but it's not a bad fight neither. There's a lot of top guys at 140, and Sandor Martin is definitely one of them. I would love to see Devin Haney fight Teofimo Lopez. I think that is the fight to make. I would love to see him fight Subriel Matias. I would love unification. But unifications is not always good. Rolly Romero is a champion right now. Obviously, if Devin Haney were to take that kind of fight, It's warranted simply because it's a unification. But as far as quality of fight, I think that's a step down from the few fights that that Devin Haney has taken in most recent years. I think Rolly would be a step down from Prograis, Loma, and George Kambosos, in my opinion. Rolly has not done anything in his career to even be a champion at 140. So, with that being said, if he is to fight Sandor Martin, I would understand. If he wants to hold on to that title, I would understand. He's been talking about 147. Again, I don't think the move to 147 would make any kind of sense unless it's Keith Thurman or unless it's like a Conor Ben. But I don't see that happening, and I think I think Keith Thurman is going to keep it in-house and probably fight Stan Jonas part of that PBC deal with Amazon or whatever they decide to do in the future. I could see that being the next big fight over there, or rollout fight for the PBC. So I don't even know if Keith Thurman is going to be available. Maybe he will be available down the line. But in any event, Devin Haney, I can see him fighting Ryan because Ryan has a name and they can make that a pay-per-view. So those are the options that I think are realistic options. There are obviously a lot of good fighters at 140. Jack Catterall is a good one. But if you're going to hold on to the belt, you got to make a unification or a mandatory. And I see the Sandor Martin being the next fight. I guess definitely not going to be a fight that Devin Haney probably wants, or the fans probably not going to really want that kind of fight, because Sandor Martin is definitely a very, very good counterpuncher, but it would make for a super highly technical defensive fight between the both of them. And it's just not going to be the fight that people are going to want to see. You know what I mean? Stylistically, it's going to be a boring matchup. I think Sandor Martin would make a good fight with someone that's going to be the aggressive and someone that he can work and take advantage of counters. You don't want to see, and Haney is more than just a counterpuncher. So he would definitely initiate. But the one good thing that would come out with Devin Haney fighting Sandor Martin is that he would try to beat Martin better than Teofimo Lopez or better than Mikey Garcia. Well, Mikey lost to Sandor Martin, but you know what I'm saying. He would probably want to have a better showing against Martin over those two. So I think that would be the benefit of fighting Sandor Martin. Plus, you get to keep your title. But it looks like Devin Haney is in a position to move where he wants to move. In a perfect world, I would love to see, these guys unify and work their way to getting an undisputed fight at 140. Whoever is the last two, between Subriel Matias, who is still in talks with Teofimo Lopez. They're saying now that they're possibly going to make a fight, push towards a fight happening in June between Teofimo Lopez against Subriel Matias. Let me tell you something. If Teofimo Lopez takes that fight right now, that guy, I can't say anything else about him. I mean, what a tough schedule this guy's had in his career. Teofimo Lopez will get super credit. And at one point I was trying to make when it came to Tank. The point I was trying to make when it comes to Tank is Tank has a pattern in being the A side and making the fights, taking the fights that he want to take. That's beneficial to him. So instead of chasing champions, which he's not doing, he doesn't care for championships. All right. Tank has moved a couple guys out to fight him. Tank made Ryan agree to the catchweight terms. I don't think Tio, Devin, guys that's moved up from 135, I think those guys have enough on for themselves to not have to drain themselves to come back down to 135. If Tank were to ever fight Haney or fight Tio, they would have to drain themselves to fight Tank. Tank is not going to go to 140 to fight them like he did against Barrios. Barrios is not as good. And Barrios was probably struggling making weight at 140 at that time. You know what I mean? It's not a fight that anyone was asking for when he fought Barrios. You're not even fighting for the full WBA title. But a lot of names were being tossed around at that time. Josh Taylor's name, Regis Prograis, all the top guys at 140 at that time, their names was coming up. But Tank didn't fight those guys. He fought Mario Barrios, who was the regular WBA champion, not the Super World WBA champion. So I think that these guys has established their careers to a point where they don't have to drain themselves to come down. If Tank wants to stay at 135 and fight who he wants to fight, let him do it. You know, if he wants to fight Isaac Cruz again, let him do it. We don't need the fight, you know, and that goes for the guys at 135 too. You guys don't need the fight. I know the money is big, all right, but you guys can still have careers and work yourself and build yourself and your skills up. And if the fight is on the table, make the fight. If it's a realistic offer. But if not, there's plenty of options. That goes for Shakur. Shakur got plenty of options at 135. If he doesn't fight Tank, there's plenty of options there. Work on your own career. And I think a lot of these fighters need to do that. Stop just chasing the big name. Work on your own career. I've said this about Andre plenty of times. Andre wanted Canelo for years. In between that and getting a Canelo fight, you have to do what you got to do. That's what Benavidez is doing now. You don't get Canelo, you don't get the big fish. You fight all the other top guys until you get the call. You beat Plant, you beat Andre. If it's not Canelo next, you beat the next big name. That's all you can really do. And that's what all of these fighters should do. You know, if Tank is interested in you, he'll call you. But Tank is not gunning for anyone. Tank is fighting who he wants to fight when he wants to fight them. In the meantime, all of these other fighters need to have their own careers. So, yeah, as far as those guys, again, I did a more thorough breakdown of the fight. I mean, it's nothing to really break down. I mean, Haney exposed them and showed that Prograis is a one-dimensional fighter. You know, and I'm a big fan of Prograis, but he is a one-dimensional fighter. You know, he didn't have a different gear. If he can't land the straight left hand or the overhand left, the big left hand, it's nothing else there. He doesn't know how to close distance. You know, he didn't know how to do anything with that lead hand to throw off Haney. He didn't know how to do anything. He just lunged in at times and got caught. When he was being aggressive, he would get punched. When he wasn't being aggressive, Haney just out-jabbed him and just beat him up from the outside. And on the inside, Prograis was never really that good on the inside. So Devin Haney beat him up there too. Haney had his way with Prograis. You know, and Prograis, at this point, you got to have a bounce back. But now everyone is going to be gunning for you. All the guys that are undefeated, they're going to be gunning for you. My suggestion is to change camps. I don't think it's over. You know, he says he wants to be a 3-time champ before going to MMA. So change camps. You got to change camps. You got to work on something. You know, it might be too late, but it may not be too late. You got to work on something. Change camps, because if you're going to be fighting boxers, if you fight Jack Catterall, if you fight Sandor Martin, they're going to try to beat you the same way. If you fight aggressive fighters, you have more of a chance, because now you could be the boxer and you can control distance and time them with the left hand as they're lunging in. But if you're going to be fighting guys that's going to stay on the outside and beat you with their range and their reach, you're going to have struggles moving forward. All right. All right, so this is the end of the Wave Report number 28. Please subscribe to the channel again, like and comment on the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Y'all have a good day. Peace.